When I pulled into my driveway that quiet Thursday afternoon, the last thing I expected was to see someone else's car parked right where mine should have been, and the unmistakable scent of fresh coffee and cinnamon rolls drifting out of my own front door. I froze. I'd been gone for 3 weeks on a business trip overseas, and absolutely no one was supposed to be in my home. And that's when I saw her, Karen, the self-appointed queen of our home, a woman who thought the entire neighborhood existed solely for her approval. Blonde curls perfectly stiff from hairspray, sunglasses too large for her face, and that ever-present air of entitlement that made everyone either duck or flee when she came near. But there she was inside my mansion, walking through my kitchen like she owned the place. I didn't storm in immediately. I just stood by the front door, stunned, trying to make sense of what I was seeing through the open blinds. She was humming, casually moving around in her robe, a cup of coffee in hand, even talking to my dog like she lived there for years. Rage burned inside me, but I knew better than to act impulsively. I pulled out my phone and started recording. I wanted proof. Then, I quietly unlocked the door, pushed it open, and stepped inside. Karen froze mid-step, the coffee mug slipping from her fingers and shattering on the tile. Her face went pale. What are you doing here?" she stammered. I stared at her, barely containing my fury. "What am I doing here, Karen? This is my house. What are you doing here?" Her eyes darted around like a trapped animal before she snapped back. No, this property was reported as vacant. I thought you moved out. The HOA was managing it for safety reasons." That was a lie, and we both knew it. My security system was supposed to alert me to any entry, but I'd found it mysteriously disconnected that morning when I checked the app. Now I knew why. "I have you on camera, Karen," I said quietly. "Every single day you've been here." She blanched. "You can't talk to me like that. I'm the president of the home." I almost laughed. "You're a trespasser. That title means nothing here." And just like that, she did something unbelievable. She pulled out her phone and called the cops. Within 15 minutes, 2 squad cars pulled up outside. The neighbors began peeking through their curtains, whispering and pointing. Karen met the officers at the door, crocodile tears streaming down her face. "Officer," she cried dramatically, "this man broke into my home. He's harassing me." I stood there in disbelief as she spun her ridiculous story, claiming she rented the house through a temporary whole housing program. The officers turned to me, eyebrows raised. "Sir, do you have proof this is your residence?" "Oh, I do," I said, handing over my ID and home deed from my phone's document folder. "And I also have video footage of her living here, sleeping in my bed, eating my food, even walking around in my bathrobe." Their radios crackled. One officer took a quick look around at the family portraits on the wall, the mail on the counter, even a picture of me and my late wife over the fireplace. His tone shifted immediately. "Ma'am," he said firmly, "you need to step outside." Karen's fake tears evaporated. "No, you don't understand. I was just keeping an eye on things." I thought up. "Save it for your lawyer," the officer said. As they let her out, she shouted over her shoulder, "You'll regret this. The HOA will have you banned from the community." The door slammed shut behind her. For the first time in weeks, my house was quiet, but that silence wasn't comforting. It was heavy, full of violation. Over the next few days, I learned just how deep her manipulation ran. The whole board had no idea she was staying in my home. She told everyone I had temporarily moved and needed her to keep it maintained. She'd even held board meetings in my living room. My neighbors admitted they saw her there often, but no one questioned it out because she was the HOA president. Power and trust, that's what she exploited. She'd even changed my mail forwarding address to her P.O. box. I found dozens of missing letters and packages piled in her trunk when the police searched it. Jewelry, electronics, personal photos, she'd taken them all. It turned out Karen had a habit of monitoring properties in the neighborhood. My mansion was just her most daring move yet. When she was finally arrested for trespassing, mail theft, and fraud, the story spread through the entire community, and for once, people stopped being afraid of her. A few weeks later, at the next home meeting, I showed up for the first time in years. People greeted me with awkward smiles, guilt still lingering from how long they'd tolerated her bullying. I stood up when it was my turn to speak. "I don't want to talk about what happened," I said. "We've all heard enough. I just want to remind everyone, don't let fear silence you. When you see someone abusing power, speak up. Don't wait until it reaches your doorstep." A few neighbors nodded, some even clapped quietly. That was the beginning of real change. We voted for a new board, rewrote the rules to limit the president's authority, and even started a neighborhood watch, not to spy, but to protect each other. A month later, I was sitting on my back patio at sunset, sipping coffee, when my next-door neighbor, Jim, came over. "She really had us fooled, huh?" he said, shaking his head. "Yeah," I sighed. "She used fear to control everyone. It's easier to obey than to confront." "I get it." Jim looked thoughtful. "You know, we all thought you were this distant, rich guy who didn't care. But after what you did, I think people finally see you differently, like a broken bar human." That made me smile. Maybe something good came out of it after all. Weeks later, I got a letter in the mail from Karen herself. It was short, handwritten, and surprisingly honest. "Greater than I lost everything, my position, my reputation, even my home. I don't expect forgiveness, but I want you to know I've started therapy. I finally realized I was living for control because I had none anywhere else." I read it twice, folded it, and placed it in a drawer. Not because I forgave her completely, but because I understood something profound. Some people break others to feel powerful. But true strength comes from integrity, not control. Today, my house feels like a home again. I rebuilt my sense of safety, not just with new locks and cameras, but with community. I open my doors to my neighbors for weekend cookouts. I walk my dog every evening, and I even help plant a small garden in the neighborhood park Karen once said was too messy to maintain. The irony isn't lost on me, because sometimes, it takes losing your peace to remember how precious it is. So, if you've ever been bullied by someone with a little too much authority, someone who thinks rules apply to everyone but them, remember this. Their power only lasts as long as your silence. The moment you stand your ground, they lose control. And that's exactly what happened the day Karen called the cops on me. Broken bar, only to end up handcuffed in her bathrobe in front of the entire neighborhood she once ruled. And for the first time, justice didn't just knock on my door, it walked right in.